The Scream Kings are in no way responsible for any encounters with the paranormal, extraterrestrial abductions, eldritch insanity, hauntings, hexes, curses, demonic possessions, cryptozoological sightings, or any loss of sleep from listening to this podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Scream Kings podcast. I'm NJ Gallegos.
I'm Nathaniel Darkish.
It's not the house that is haunted. It's your podcast. And today, on this lovely haunted podcast, we have Laurel Hightower. So, welcome her with open arms, everybody. Woo!
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. And hopefully
Excellent.
tech issues won't ruin the recording.
I mean, the podcast is haunted.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
We already said it. Plus, we do have a grudge match against Pazuzu messing up our internet for years now.
Oh, that fucking guy.
Pazuzu. Say one bad thing about him.
He holds a grudge.
All right. Well, Laurel, I want to kind of rep you up a little bit here. I don't think stalk's the right word, but I really just love all of your work and everything. I think you're freaking awesome, and I want you to also teach me more about bourbon one day so I can be as cool as you are. And I also would love to hear more about you being like a paralegal. What was that?
I was just going to add that stalk is the right word.
Is it? I mean, I
Maybe
did drive
haunt?
through Kentucky recently,
Haunt's
but
good.
I couldn't. Yes, haunt.
I like that. And thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really appreciate you read my work, and I will be happy to teach you everything I know about bourbon.
Yes. And then maybe one day, if we're really cool, we can go to the Kentucky Derby and wear a big hat and get mint juleps and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. It's just an
It's
experience
like my
everyone needs
dream,
to have.
even.
I mean, honestly, I've never been.
Yeah.
But I still feel like,
And cheer for horses with insane names like My Red Left Shoe and Orb.
Did you just say
Yes.
orb?
That was a real horse name. I'm not even lying.
Like ORB?
Yeah,
Yes. And he won.
I remember that vaguely.
And here's orb.
Yeah, they they have to register them, and so when they do, it has to be, I think, a name that hasn't been used before, so it gets pretty outrageous.
Do you want to know the best horse name, though?
Yes.
There is a horse from, and this is a famous, important horse. I don't know why I know this. Internet is a cursed place. Its name was Potatoes, but it was spelled P-O-T, and then it had 8 O's.
No.
I think me and that horse would be friends.
I'm not making this up. This is 100% real. It's like the descendant of, the ancestor of some important, famous racehorses like Seabiscuit and stuff.
Wow.
Ah. I'm going to have you as my lifeline
Saga
if
of
I'm ever
potatoes.
on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Because I spend too much time learning stupid crap on the internet. Fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant, though. That's the kind of thing I need in my life.
Well, I don't think any of us expected this episode to start this way.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right. Horses.
I just have 3 interesting horse facts, and that was all of them.
Well,
And we've covered it.
Yeah, I mean,
so
you
that's
blew your
good.
load
You
a
got
little
all the
early, but
horse
that's
facts
fine.
out.
I just like to think of myself as a stud that was needed for the horse fact meeting.
Nice.
I see what you did there. I liked that. So, Laurel, I was introduced to you first by reading Below, obviously, which Mothman is arguably the best cryptid and also the hottest cryptid. I mean, have you seen those buns? My God.
He's so caked up. and I don't
Ugh.
even know why, but
Yeah, he's like dummy thick, and I'm here for it.
I don't know how more people didn't see him with those things clapping around.
Right? And like, how is
I
he?
do not know.
He can't be a bad omen if you like if you have a butt like that. Like, come on.
I'm
Maybe
guessing
it's
that the bridge disaster happened because people were just too distracted by them.
that's what I was wondering is if those cheeks just cause such a distraction level.
I could buy that. I'd be distracted. So, moving on from Mothman's ass. What would you say that your horror origin story is there?
Or Horrorgen, if you will.
Haha.
Origin. Um, I feel like I know that my parents showed me stuff like way too early, like, all the rest of us. Um, but I feel like I really kind of got hooked like on my own on stuff just when I was a kid, and I really liked like the fall kind of Halloween type atmosphere. It was just like so cozy and so like exactly where I wanted to be all the time. And then I was like, wait, I can kind of manifest this, create this element like elsewhere. And then I got addicted to just reading any library book that had a little ghost on the spine and, pulling stuff off my parents' shelves that once again I should not have been reading. And they got what they deserved because I remember being very young and asking my dad, what's getting laid mean? And he just gave me this look. And as an adult, I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Did he attempt to even translate that for you, or he was just like, no?
No, I think he like got up and yelled at my mom or something because it was definitely one of her books I was reading. Like, you
I
deal with
love
this.
that. It's like I don't it's not horror by any means, but Jackie Collins books. My mom had those laying around, and they are just like absolute like tawdry trash, and I'm here for it.
Oh, yes, smut. That's really where we should all get our sexual education.
That or VC Andrews, very great books for that.
Huh. Not confusing at all.
Yeah, whatever. All right. Well, how about what's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, that's Poltergeist, hands down. It
Excellent
has
choice.
it
Mm,
has been for a super long time. I love that movie.
that's a great choice. All right. What about scariest? And that it's okay to have Poltergeist as that too.
Ooh, scariest. No, Terrified. God, the
Ooh.
one that came out, what was that, like 2018 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that was horrifying and so good. Like I was really the way it was shaping up, like first 5 minutes, I was like, okay, pretty solid start. Yeah, oh my God, it was amazing. I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, that movie absolutely slaps and
Ooh.
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I have
It's
not seen that one, so I'll add
what
that to
country is
my
that from?
list.
I can't remember is it Argentinian?
Yeah, it's like Argentina. Yeah, I think it's Argentina. Yeah, it's really good. Um, yeah, we covered it on the podcast before you joined NJ. It's yeah, it's really top tier, kind of like foreign language horror. Um, yeah, there's a few things in that just mess me up, like whenever I think about it, even years later.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it goes hard.
Well, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your newest novel?
Yeah, sure. So it's called The Day of the Door, which title most of my beta readers hated, but when my publisher Max read it, he was like, "Oh no, wait, this fits," and now it kind of has grown on me. But so it just kind of tells the story of the Lasco kids, the three remaining ones as adults. When they were teenagers, there used to be four of them. Their eldest brother Sean died in a violent act 20 years before, and Nate, who is kind of the lead character, the other brother, has always believed their mother Stella carried that out, that she's the one who killed him, and she's always claimed that there was like a paranormal entity who was doing things back then. So now they're all adults, they're all maladjusted to a certain extent, but in different ways. and just kind of like as the residuals of being, children of a narcissist. Um, but then they kind of get brought back together at the house where all this happened by a film crew who's going to do like a ghost hunting type show with it. And the reason Nate agrees to it is because he decides he's going to get some answers from her at this point, kind of one way or another.
Well, I haven't read it yet, and that sounds freaking awesome.
Mm. How did you come up with the idea? Oh, it's so good. Again, but I'm like a Laurel Hightower fangirl, so.
I appreciate that. It was kind of like stemming from a few different things. Like, one of the things I've always thought was really insidious about the way that, I mean, sometimes like kids, of abusive parents, but also just in general, like, as a method of splitting people up, like culling, the weakest from the herd, like the smallest, the youngest or whoever, or just like pulling someone aside, to an unseen place so that you're sitting there, worried about them. And that's always, it's kind of that not knowing that's bothersome. And then a lot of it kind of coalesced with I was watching all these like haunting recreation shows where people, talk about they get together with like the people who were in their lives at the time and who maybe experienced it with them. And they're like, okay, so let's talk about this haunting or this possession that happened. And a lot of them seem to be like really healing. Like you might have like roommates get together and be like, oh my God, I didn't know you were dealing with that, or I saw this. But some of the family ones would feature a mother who would talk about her victimhood as being possessed and all these horrible things that happened to her. But then you start realizing that a lot of how it manifested was in how she dealt with her children. And I was watching one particular episode where she had two daughters, and one of them was just hanging on every word. And she was like, yeah, yeah, that's right. That's what happened. That's the only reason that you could have acted that way. And the older girl was like, I will fucking cut you. And it just sort of got me thinking about like, okay, let's say, that it's like possession or something like at what point does your, at what point does that stop affecting people? So I just kind of worked it from there because it was such an interesting and it was a
Yeah.
repeated pattern. I saw that that's the one that sticks out the most, but I saw that occur several times in multiple episodes.
I really like how you brought up kind of and for whatever reason, this had never occurred to me. Like, I had always viewed possession or, ghosts, hauntings, whatever, as like, yeah, there's a supernatural entity there. But you had brought up some, like, there's residual emotion or bad outcomes or things like that that are actually the haunting being manifested, and it's not actually something else, and that blew my mind some for whatever reason, like, and I loved it.
Oh, thank you. Like the emotions manifesting.
Yeah, or like the turmoil, it like sticks around almost and grows.
Yes, yeah. 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 I don't know if you all are believers, but it's one of those things that like I mean there are just times when you can walk into a room and it's like I mean it just feels thick in there. Like there's tension or there's like crackling anger like I don't know, I just feel it. It's not every time and it's not everything, but there are times when it's like God, it's heavy in here.
Yeah. And the other things I wanted to commend you on, no spoilers, but Stella sucks. Stella's the worst. So nicely done.
Thank you.
Yep, yep. And just your prose, like, chef's kiss. So I highlighted one line that I just wanted to just bravo you for. And the line, Nate rolled his neck to a chorus of crackling cartilage. Like, it made my ER doctor heart just so happy. Ugh, it's so good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love the use of powerful consonants.
Ooh.
Yeah, and the alliteration that I don't think I'd even noticed was that was that extensive in that sentence.
Yeah, I was just like, I like literally like let out a little glee-ish, like, ooh, I don't know. It was weird, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Thank you.
Anytime. So everybody go pick up the book. It's amazing. Mothman is not in it, but after that you can read below and just his glory.
God, I should have done a crossover. That's such a missed opportunity.
I'm still waiting
You
for
you could
the
just see if there was just like any like weird sounds going on somewhere, you could just be like, oh no, that was the crossover because that was Mothman's cheeks clapping in the distance.
That's what they use to distract Stella. They're just like, look at this caked up ass. Oh, he likes me, doesn't he?
That's how you get a narcissist. You get Mothman to just work.
I am special.
They just can't look away.
It's so beautiful. Well, and it's interesting because the movie that you chose is Insidious, which it does tie in a bit, I would say, to your book. So for those who have not seen Insidious, it's directed by James Wan, my boy, Malignant, Saw, and then written by Leah Whannell.
Lee Wanell.
Whannell? Say it again. I like the way you said it.
Just have to say it with a little bit of an Australian accent.
Whannell.
Lee Wanell.
Whannell.
Just remember that they're Australians. Then you just got to add that, kind of front of the mouth thing.
Yeah. And yeah, who wants to tell us what the plot of Insidious is?
You chose the movie. Do you want to do it, Laurel, or do you want me
Yeah,
to take
I
it?
don't
Or...
I don't mind. It'll be very rambling, so I'll try and cut it
Cool.
short. So Insidious follows a family who has moved into a new house, and they kind of start getting the typical haunting, scenarios, things moved around, all that kind of thing. They have three children, and the middle one, Dalton, ends up in what is not really a coma, but he is unresponsive. And it turns out that it's because he's astral projecting. Um, and I don't know if we want to do spoilers on this. I mean, it's a fairly
Oh
old
yeah.
movie. Do ringing the spoiler bell, so log off now and watch it and then come back. But um, it turns out that his father, Josh, that he's sort of inherited this ability, and he's wandered too far from his body. He can't find his way back, and there's all these critters who kind of want to take over the body now that it's not occupied. So Josh has to kind of recollect all these things that were repressed on purpose for him, so that he would stop astral projecting as a child, and he's got to go back and deal with some threats and go find his son.
All right. Yeah, and then we also get some helpful paranormal investigators and a psychic that help along the way.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that was a major element I forgot. And I love that psychic. Like I want her to come investigate stuff for me, even if I'm not haunted. Like she's just so warm.
Yeah, it's like, Lynn Shay, please just come to my house and
Well, you might need a
channel your
Ouija
spirit.
board to talk to her, so.
Well, oh, that does okay. That's actually probably greater chances than
That's
actually
true.
just tracking her down.
That's true.
I don't
So let's talk about what we liked about the movie.
I can go first. I feel like the first 2/3 or 3/4 of this movie are really like some of the strongest like PG-13 horror that's out there. I think it's very scary, and then it kind of goes a weird direction, but we'll get to that maybe when we get into the things that didn't work as well, maybe. But yeah, like I feel like especially like the first batch of scares, I was rewatching part of the movie today, and the first batch of scares is really effective. Like, kind of being a, I watched this probably when I was, I don't know, 20, I guess is when this would have come out. Yeah, so I was 21 probably when I first saw this, and it was a fun movie. But coming to it now as a parent, like that kind of that opening act, and like, hey, Dalton's in this like weird medical state, that would scare the crap out of me as a parent, and I feel like that was being played really well. And then also we have some like really effective things like with the creepiness over the baby monitor, and seeing like the weird stringy hair guy outside of the window and all of that. It was real scary, like right at the beginning. Well, once the plot gets going.
Yeah, definitely. And when you talk about the medical issues with the kid too, like one of the really just striking moments is when she's being taught by the nurse how to insert a feeding tube.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just see like it's this like isolation that's hitting her. Like not only is he home and she's responsible for him, but there's not going to be nursing care around the clock. Like she's going to have to do this shit. And that is just it, I Renee is such an interesting character. I really I really like, and this kind of ties in some with your book too, NJ, is the just whoever whoever wrote this, like the way that they show Josh like leisurely getting ready in the morning, like, brushing his teeth, checking his hair, and the mom is down in the kitchen dealing with three screaming children and on the phone, like trying to get their number ported over. And then he just walks in, pats everyone on the head, grabs an apple, and bounces. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So we're already setting this up to where
Yeah.
she's very alone.
I'll say that was really a weird choice in that, like, she's not the protagonist, right? Like, that ultimately, like, Josh does become the protagonist, and kind of it's like our hero we're cheering for. But yeah, he spends a lot of the movie kind of being a little bit of a deadbeat, which is, well, like, he's not full blown deadbeat dad, but like he definitely is avoiding the issue and stuff like that in a way that, like, it's kind of hard to cheer for him when, yeah, like I'm much more cheering for Renee as like good parent who is like really invested in the situation. Like, I almost would have preferred it if she were the one who was you know tackling the stuff in the further.
I've decided she is the protagonist just now.
Fair enough.
I think she would have been in the further, like, she would have just, like, walked in, walked out. The movie would have been, like, 30 minutes shorter.
She'd have
She would have just slapped a lipstick face and just be like, "Give me back my son, you little bastard." And then, bam, we're out.
She'd use the mom voice on him so hard, like they would just like run away. Or like, yes, ma'am, let me show you where he
Oh,
is.
you know that the mom voice works on, I don't know, demons? The otherworldly spirits? Like, it has to work.
It works on most people. I don't mean to use it, and then it just like comes out. Like I've used it on attorneys that I work for. I have used it on opposing counsel. I have used it on strangers in an airport when they tried to climb up on a fucking baggage carousel. I did, like, I'm not even trying to. It's just this thing that just releases. But honestly, that was really fucking deserved. Get off the baggage carousel, you jackass. Like,
Yeah, and this is why we can't get our bags. I
I
always,
know. It was midnight. I was like, so help
Ugh.
me.
I always picture George Costanza when he's like, "We're living in a society, people," when people do stuff like this, because it's just like, come on.
Sorry, I got us way off track. Things that we like about the movie.
It's okay. Right. Let's see, what else did I enjoy? I always love a nice Easter egg. Like, that's probably why I read Stephen King, because he'll mention like one throwaway comment in, one sentence, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this connects to the Dark Tower." But the scene where Josh is staying late at school to avoid his family life and whatnot, there's a little chalk drawing of Jigsaw on the chalkboard, and it just tickled me.
That is good.
Nathaniel's headphones crapped out. That's all right. We can still talk. Then we can talk about the baggage carousel and everything.
Yeah, I don't know, the whole thing, there's just a lot that I really liked about it. Like a lot of the like little touches like in the characters. And I've seen it a number of times, so I feel like that's maybe where I'm picking up more stuff. But like when Renee is like begging him like believe me, that is heart-wrenching, but also seems incredibly realistic. And yeah, I mean a lot of the elements that they use in the further, I enjoyed, and there were some really good jump scares. Also, just as a side note, I liked that they had the husband putting eye cream on before bed. Like, you never see that in a movie.
I noticed that. Yeah, he's like dusting himself very lightly.
So, Tiptoe Through the Tulips,
Oh, yeah.
easily one of my favorite parts is just the way that it incorporated that song because one, it's a banger, of course. Big fan of
It
Tiny
is.
Tim and everything that he represents in terms of just being a weird, unhinged musician. Um, but also, just like yeah, like the ways that they incorporated it into the movie with like the weird dancing boy ghost and stuff like that was, I thought, really effective, especially when we kind of get him like the first couple of times because like that was like a daylight scare, right? Like we don't always see a lot of good daylight scares in movies like this, and so having this dancing boy, having the music playing, stuff like that, really I thought was a really cool way to kind of extend the fear into the daytime because again, like even though it really doesn't make any sense for it to all just be at night, most things are just always at night.
Yeah, that's a good point. They did do well with the daylight scare there. Did you catch she said something when she was telling Josh about it about that she saw a little boy, but it was not actually a child.
Yeah, so I think that's so the dancing boy ghost I think is supposed to be not an actual child. It's supposed to be like he is actually looks older if you get a better look at him. You just don't get that many good looks at him. I think it was in one of the sequels that they had a better image of him that you can kind of see that he really isn't actually a child, but he has that little kid jumper kind of thing going on, or romper, whatever it is. I know words for clothes. His very like British posh child vibe.
Yeah, with the shoes and the hat for sure.
It's fashion.
Yeah, but yeah, apparently it's just a creepy, much older person cosplaying as a creepy little boy.
Okay. See, I didn't know because they heard the song later in the further, and I didn't know if the little boy was a manifestation of the demon, but I guess probably not. That would kind of kill the scare on that.
Yeah, that is something that confused me too. Is that when Lipstick Face is playing it, which by the way, I love that is the actual name for the demon is Lipstick Face.
Oh, really?
That I yes, like you probably saw that in the notes. And you're like, oh, haha, no, that is his actual like canonical name, is Lipstick Face Demon.
Really?
I'm not lying to you. That's what it has on IMDb. Lipstick Face Demon, played by Joseph Bishara.
That that kind of pulls the punch, honestly.
A little bit. It definitely fits a lot more with Lipstick Face at the end of the movie than at the beginning of the movie. Because the first time we see him, you're like, holy crap, it looks like Darth Maul's going to eat him.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then at the end, it's just like him, like, unhinged, like, in his weird lair, jamming out. You're just like, what is going on? Anyway, yeah. So, Lipstick Face, yeah, I don't think it's an extension of him. I think it's just one of his minions, maybe, or something. I don't know. That's where things get weird. Is once we get into like how the further works, it gets messy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to hear your all's thoughts on that as far as the further goes, because you've both mentioned that it kind of falls apart a little bit in the third act.
I'll take it one step further. It crapped the bed.
Here's those strong feelings coming up.
Yes, but there are more good things I want to say before we get there.
Before we start shitting on it.
Yes. Well, let's be real. It shit on itself. I love the soundtrack of this. I feel like that was like just the way that it handled the whole screechy violins in a way that like wasn't just the same thing I've heard a million times, but it was like way punchier and way bolder. I really like the soundtrack. I felt like a lot of the creature designs and set designs and stuff were really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were too much, but some of them were great. We already talked about how much Lynn Shay absolutely crushes it as Elise. She's the best.
She really is. I really like Barbara Hershey as the mom, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like maybe they underutilized the mom a little bit, because it's like, oh, why is her first time coming here and hearing about any of this stuff like so late in the game when she has important information to drop conveniently? How, like why didn't she go like, oh, this sounds like this thing from the past, when they were, I don't know, communicating with her at all? But anyway, yeah, like I love that they actually did try to move to fix the problems. There's a lot of things that are really strong.
Yeah, that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because it's usually like every white person ever in any haunted house movie, they're like, it's fine, we'll be fine, we'll just stay here. And like he was like, okay, fine, we'll move. That's like he came around to the idea pretty quickly, I thought. And then it was like, ah, crap, it's not the house.
Which unfortunately was slightly ruined by the fact that, the trailer was the thing that was like, the house isn't haunted, it's your son. Which, that's a great line if you don't hear it before you watch the movie.
Yeah.
But you said it really nicely. It sounded really good.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. So are there other things that you guys want to highlight before we move on to the further?
I mean, just overall, I feel it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, NJ.
No, you go for it, Laurel.
I just kind of, and I think this is true of, and believe me, with the Conjuring universe, I am not a universal fan of it. But I like the way that like visually everything in here is set up. Like there's just there's a feel to it, and so even some of like the creatures or ghosts or whatever that seem a little bit overdone, it's in keeping with the appearance of the rest of it. So yeah, I aesthetically I really like it. Like even just watching the way it comes on the opening credits, like looking for the hidden things that are in each scene was a really good setup. Oh, and I loved her seance mask. That is so fucking creepy.
Yes, though I have thoughts about that too.
Ooh, okay.
Actually, okay, NJ, other good things before I start talking about the mask.
Before you go on your tirade.
Yes.
The one thing I very much enjoyed, I thought it broke up some of the tension, was the dynamic between Tucker and Specs, the two like assistants to Elise, the paranormal investigators.
One of
I kind of liked how
Wanell.
The one and only. I like how they bickered, and they're just like two little boys competing for mom's attention, and I enjoyed watching their little dynamic and their relationship. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like most of the way that they're used in the movie is great. Occasionally it becomes a little too silly in a way that like diffuses useful tension, but as a whole, I like the characters. I like those guys a lot.
Same. Yeah.
All right, so my thoughts about the mask. So I'm pretty okay. A couple things. I think it's very creepy, and I think it's really cool. I think it's technically a stenographer mask, which is like kind of crazy because apparently court stenographers used to wear a mask like that, and then they would like whisper into it everything that was being said in the court proceedings.
Oh my god. It's horrible.
Right? Like how would you feel like being on trial for something and then you like look over and there's someone like wearing that?
Jesus.
So yeah, like that was a thing actually, which is wild. But yeah, so I think that's what she's using. Like it's very creepy. I don't really understand its purpose. And I think maybe its lack of purpose other than creepiness is kind of evident in the fact that it didn't come back in any of the sequels, which, again, I think it's super cool though. I think that a big part of like why they designed it and why they used it was like a tribute to Sandman comics.
Oh.
Because yeah, Dream, Morpheus, the Sandman, has like a helm that looks a lot like that. So I think that's probably where it's coming from in terms of like maybe they just wanted to pay tribute to some admittedly really great comics. And like tonally, yeah, like the Further does have a lot of Sandman vibes. So I see maybe like how that was a nod, but again, I just don't know if it actually makes any sense in the context of like how the seance works.
Well, that's you looking for logic, and I don't think that has any place here.
Okay, that's fair.
Don't you think that some of it's like they're almost like showmen a little bit, you know? Like it's a little bit of the razzle dazzle.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have thoughts just about James Wan in general and his razzle dazzle. So I would say, okay. Sorry, I have strong opinions. So I think James Wan is really great about half the time, and the other half he is just a chaotic mess. And sometimes that division happens partway through a movie, as what we see with this one. I felt like the first like 3/4 felt like the first Conjuring movie, like in terms of the tone, the feel, the creeps. In fact, I'd say it's scarier than the first Conjuring movie. And then the last quarter was like his movie Dead Silence, which I thought was what's the right word? I mean, bad is one of them, but just like stupid, I guess. It's one of those, like, it has all of these absolutely campy, insane ideas that I'm usually on board with, but I feel like the delivery is so like ham-fisted and silly that I can't be impressed by it when I'm like it seems like he's telling me you should be scared by this, and I just go, but that's just dumb. so yeah, like I hated Dead Silence. I really disliked what is it called? It's like his newer one. It's one of the other creepy one-word ones.
If it's Malignant, I'm gonna fight you because I love that movie.
Yeah, I hated Malignant. I hated it so much.
Really?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it a 2.
Do you also hate like puppies and rainbows?
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit. No, like, see, I just feel like, you know, on one side we have like The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2, and we have Saw, and we have the first 3/4 of Insidious, and then the other half of it is Aquaman and Malignant and Dead Silence, and
yeah, that is weird.
Fast and the Furious 7, and it's I want him to pick a lane, and I hate when he shifts gears partway through a movie. It's like really tense, really emotional, family drama. It's terrifying. Oh, now we're just gonna play with silly toys. Like, The Further feels like he found a bunch of spooky toys and smashed them together like 7-year-old boys playing with action figures. Here's Godzilla fighting a T-Rex fighting a Power Ranger.
I would watch that movie.
Same.
Yeah, that actually sounds freaking rad.
Yeah.
Comment withdrawn. but like do you see what I'm saying though? Like I feel like, especially when it comes to like The Further, a lot of the ideas would make a great monster in and of themselves for like their own thing, like the weird like family that just keeps like jumping forward, like it's like they just exist in like weird time jumps, and it's that like 1950s family that are all smiling.
Yeah,
they're really creepy, but they don't seem to have anything to do with anything else. and so or yeah, like looking at the weird palace for lipstick face or things like that, it just feels like a hat on a hat. Like there's just too many things that are too extra on top of the other things that are too extra.
I
Ugh.
can see that. I can see that. I will say, full confession, I love Dead Silence. Like, I had such a good time with that movie. But I I am not the most like discriminating of film watchers. And I miss like a vast amount of symbolism. So like when you were saying like, oh, it's just like they're telling me I should be scared of this, I'm like, thank you for informing me. I don't always know.
And and like obviously like there's an audience for it because he keeps making movies that feel more like that, right? Like Insidious, or not Insidious, sorry, Malignant, like was like a pretty big hit. Like a lot of people really loved it, and so clearly like I'm just not the audience for that. But oh man, I was super duper not the audience for that one, and I really wanted to like it. Like I love a lot of like weird campy things.
We're gonna have to talk about that more.
Yeah,
gonna-
Because I
that
would
be an
honestly
episode where,
put Malignant is like a top 10 movie for me. I love that movie.
oh wow. Yeah, no.
yeah, I love it.
See, we're gonna have to bring Max into this too because he also hated it.
So you need backup.
Then you know what? I'm tag teaming Laurel in for me.
Okay.
Okay. I can do that.
Future episode.
Actually, I haven't seen it. I have not seen Malignant, so that'll
Well-
give me a good reason to watch
Oh,
it.
you haven't? So
Well, if you like Dead Silence, it'll probably be up your alley. Honestly,
Nice.
it's similar levels of just over the top camp. But again, like I usually like camp. I don't know why I hated it so much. I guess it's just that I need like Mystery Science Theater making fun of it while I'm watching my camp.
Oh yeah, you need the riff tracks. I can see
Yeah.
why that would be helpful.
So
Yeah.
I would watch the crap out of a Riff Tracks version of Malignant. I'm not gonna lie.
I'd watch that as well.
Yeah, yeah. Even if I like a movie, I would still add the riff tracks to it.
Anyways, that was my rant. What are things that didn't work for you guys as much in this movie? Oh, go. I sound like I'm a crazy person. I'm sorry.
No, I like strong
it's all
emotions in response. NJ, you want to go?
I mean, we touched on this slightly, but the other people that were in the further, like we were talking about, like the family, the old woman, just these like randos, like it was almost too much where it took away from what was going on with like Lipstick Face, Josh, and Dalton. Like I was like, who are these people? Like, what are they about? Like I don't know if this comes in on any of the sequels because I haven't seen them. But it took me a bit out of it because I wanted to know more about like why are all these randos here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, and also along those lines, to kind of add on to that, I feel like it also sort of like forgot about some of the more effective ones that we were seeing before. Like we don't get as much of weird little boy that's not actually a little boy, or like the dude with the long hair that was like creeping outside the window. Like the first chunk of the movie, it was just like long hair guy. Where did he go?
He was still trying to get to that baby. He
Or like the
doesn't
Johnny
wanna-
Depp guy.
Yeah.
The one that Josh ends up having like a freaking fist fight with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like he maybe should have been more of the big bad than Lipstick Face in some way. I don't know. He seemed like a more eminent threat.
Yeah, because I do agree with you on as far as like the over the top in the camp. Like Lipstick Face just after, I mean, it was really effective when Elise is describing it and you
Yes.
can't see it. And her like low voice, like kind of fearful description and the way that Specs is drawing, like that was very effective. But he's another one of those monsters that as soon as you see him, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that first jump scare really gets you, and then once you get a better look at him, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's that definitely does sort of like up the silliness. And you're right. I mean, I love the aesthetics of the further as far as like the way that they keep using just that one sort of bluish lantern to light everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like fog everywhere. I love that.
Same.
But yeah, like once you get into whatever that tower, or because also just it doesn't, I don't know, it didn't make a whole lot of sense as far as the spatial analysis of everything. Like either distance matters or it doesn't. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that was something that was necessarily pinned down within the writer or director's mind.
Same, and along those lines, same with time, right? Like they're like, oh, it's like separate from time and space, but why is it that Dalton has been out of his body for literal months now, and none of the ghosts that are surrounding him have been able to get in, but like Josh is out of there, and like within 5 seconds he's possessed.
Yeah, and did that have to do with the mirror? Like, did he somehow let her in with that? Because it felt like, although again, from a reality standpoint, I do not understand. All right, I dragged you away from this demon. We've been running. You go on ahead.
Yeah,
No, don't lose sight of your freaking kid. What are you doing? You don't need to catch her breath.
but yeah, I think it does have to do something with the mirror thing. I really don't know. It's very confusing. I know that the bride in black was something connected to his past, and so maybe that's how it was easier. It doesn't really explain anything in a way that works.
No, I agree with that. And again, it's kind of that like lost syndrome, where it's like you throw a bunch of stuff at it that's cool, but you don't really explain or link it together.
Mm-hmm. And having seen the second one, which does try to explain the whole bride in black, the explanation is worse and more confusing than the questions that you get here.
So they'd have been better off leaving it unexplained.
Yeah, the second one is real bad, but we'll get to that in a little bit because I'm going to briefly touch on the sequels I've seen, and they're they're a mixed bag. Are there other things that you guys want to bring up? I have like one more note that I kind of want to talk about as far as cons.
I just have a nitpicky one.
I'm good. I think I've covered it.
Yes, go ahead.
Because I noticed in the beginning part where Renee, I think it's like the first night that they're in the house, and she's wearing these like really dorky like cowboy pajamas or something, and then Dalton's wearing matching ones when he goes into his coma. And then like it's like months later and he's still in the same pajamas. It's like, I mean, like I come on.
Don't you wear the same pajamas every single night whenever you're unconscious for months
I
at
mean,
a time?
sometimes. I also like they never show him like these are all just like dumb little things, but like they never show him like like repositioning him or doing anything other than when they were the nurse was showing her how to put in an NG tube. I'd like to see more medical aspects of it. I'd like them to show him on a bedpan.
Yes. The
That's-
really
yeah.
traumatizing, lengthy bedpan sequence. Don't worry, that's in the sequel. No, it's not.
I would believe it.
Actually, I think there is a bedpan thing in the third one, but we'll get to that. Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like the medical elements are one of the more interesting components because they're like it's not like a coma, but it's a coma. Give us a little bit more than that. Explore it a little bit more because it's just like they did a bunch of tests and now it's months later. You're like, so no more tests, no more anything. No one's checking it out. They're just hoping that he wakes up.
And we're gonna send him home, by the way.
Yeah. Like he's fine, kind of. Yeah, you guys can take him home.
I don't know, he's faking it or something. I don't know.
Point is, we need the bed, so you're gonna need to go.
Oh, I mean that does track with American
That
medical
does. That's
systems.
fair.
But yeah, so like just stuff like that. It's just like I feel like they could have done more like kind of scary stuff, right? Like I feel like kind of the gold standard for like making something like a medical thing be kind of creepy and scary is The Exorcist, where
Oh yeah.
when they're running the tests on Reagan, it feels so much more like I feel like some of the most harrowing and kind of creepy scenes are when they're doing like the spinal tap and stuff like that, and you're like, ugh, like man, they're really like going through the gamut, and I feel like that is kind of a missed opportunity when like it wouldn't have been hard to cut out like, I don't know, like 2 Tucker and Specs jokes to have something else. Again, I enjoy those characters, but there was a few too many of those. Or maybe just, take away like 5% of Lipstick Face's weird chilling in his tower time.
Yeah. That does get silly. Like, as soon as he's dancing, you're like, oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, when it's a little boy that's not a boy that's dancing, you're like, oh, that's creepy. Not Lipstick Face, you're just like, oh, okay. I feel like, that belongs at like a really specific fetish drag night.
It's a shame Max isn't here because he would have loved it.
We all know about Max's torrid affair with Lipstick Face. So, yeah, the last kind of big con I have is really just kind of one of those big plot convenient things of like, it's really convenient that Josh doesn't remember like anything about his traumatic experience in the past at all. Like, I know that's like part of the fun and the mystery of this, but whenever that happens, I just go, oh, okay, cool. They just don't remember this big traumatic thing from their childhood. That's how that always works every time.
Was it supposed to be hypnosis, though?
Yeah, but it just, again, it just feels very conveniently effective hypnosis level. Like, I don't know. It was a lot for me to swallow.
There was definitely some hand waving there.
Yeah, they're like, yo, it's all super repressed. Except for when someone talks about it, and then suddenly it all comes flooding back.
Well, it's kind of cheesy. Like, he doesn't like to have his picture taken.
Yeah. And again, like, some of that was interesting, kind of foreshadowing setup stuff, but yeah, like, the way that all paid off from a storytelling perspective was like, oh, that's kind of convenient.
Yeah,
Oh, he too has had this almost exact same experience. What a crazy random happenstance. And again, like, yeah, okay, so he inherited it and stuff like that, but I don't know. It's a little bit too much, the hand of the writer is coming down and making things be a little too convenient for me.
The more you talk about this, the less I like this movie.
Then I'm doing my job.
I'm just going back like, hey, yeah, wait a second.
This does suck.
And it's funny because, like, what? the funny thing is, like, I don't think that this movie sucks. I genuinely like would put this at like one of the better PG-13 horror movies. It's one of the scarier ones in a lot of ways. I just feel like it just fails to stick the landing, and that some things like that are a little bit too kind of glaringly frustrating for me.
That's fair.
When if it had stuck the landing, being as creepy as the first 3/4 of the movie, holy crap, this would have been a scary movie.
It's not too late. They'll probably remake it in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think they finally run out of bad sequels, so.
I like how angry you are about it. One question I have. So whenever they called in Elise for Josh when he was having these issues, like, this was what, 30, 40 years ago or whatnot. How did Josh's mom find her? Like, do you just go to like the yellow pages and you're like, hey, some spooky shit's going on, like, and you find a paranormal investigator? Like, the internet's not a thing. How'd you find her?
You just start knocking on random doors.
Can you help me with my ghosts?
I think it's definitely a phone book thing.
Yeah.
You flip them open.
I just figured you like find just some sort of like thing pasted to like a power pole that just says like meeting creepy stenographer mask party, and she's like, yes, that's it. This is the group that's gonna save me. People with weird stenographer masks.
I mean, and again, I was entranced by that, so I'd probably be like, dude, look at that mask. She's got this shit handled. I'm in.
You rip it off and you're like,
Definitely
this is mine now.
Exudes authority.
Yeah. I can handle this shit. Give me that.
or maybe it was just like a lost pet poster. It's just like wanted person who can talk to ghosts, question mark, save my son, exclamation point, and then just a bunch of like the little tabs you can rip off.
Yeah, that's
I
canon
like
now. That's
that.
exactly how that happened.
Yep.
Yeah, because if they're not going to explain it, that's what they get.
Oh no, see that's in one of the sequels too. You just didn't know it because you didn't watch them. It's okay. I have the inside scoop, guys. Should we rate this movie?
Let's.
Okay, so we have two criteria with which we rate. So we go with screams and crowns. Screams is on a scale of 1 to 10. How scary is this movie? 10 is pure nightmare fuel. 1 is, you can just, you'd watch it with a toddler and, like, it'd be totally fine. I could go first. I think that this is a 6. I'd say, like, there are sections of this movie that would, like, veer into 7, even maybe 8 territory. But then it kind of loses a lot of the scariness right at the end. So,
Yeah, that's fair. I think I would I and I'm trying to remember because it's been so long since I saw it the first time. But I think in trying to like look back at that, it was probably like a 6.5 or 7.
Hmm.
Because there were some really good scare moments. It was no terrified, but there were some good scares.
Yeah, I'd give it a 5. And again, like we've said, the first 3/4 of it, I think, were handled very well. The atmospheric kind of horror and whatnot. But then, yeah, when you go to the further and all the campy weirdness happens, it just kind of loses some of its punch.
All right, so now let's talk crowns. Just on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is this movie? How much do you like this movie? And I can go with a solid 6 on this. Again, there's some stuff I really like about this movie a lot, but it craps the bed.
I think I would go for a 6 as well. You kind of talked me out of the 7.5 to 8. Uh, but just as an overall, like, it is definitely one that like I don't mind rewatching. If it's like, oh, I can't think of what to watch. Oh, look, it's on Netflix. I can handle this. So yeah, I'll stick with a 6.
6 is fair. I'm gonna give it a 4. I like all of James Wan's
Really?
stuff, honestly, but this is probably my least favorite of his stuff. Still decent, but would I necessarily want to watch it all
That's
the
said with
time?
all of the confidence of someone who hasn't seen the second one. Also directed by James Wan.
I have not seen Dead Silence either, so I need to get my shit together.
Well, you already heard my thoughts on that.
I feel like Laurel's movie viewing similar to mine because I'm just like I let it happen. I'm just like, oh, this is fun. Oh, look, there's scary things. Oh,
Don't ask any questions. Don't look behind the curtain.
exactly. I think it's because you're an English teacher. You get caught up in some symbolism and stuff that goes over our heads.
What symbolism?
I don't know.
What symbolism?
I don't know, man.
Exactly. There isn't any, but we weren't expecting any, so we just moved on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just spend a lot of time thinking about, how things come together or not come together in terms of story structure and stuff like that too. So, yeah, maybe I'm just too obsessive with it. But anyway, regardless of that, I still liked this movie more than you. Weird. Okay, so you guys want to hear a little bit about the sequels and how bad they are?
Yes.
Sure. I know, I've
Okay.
seen the third one and Through the Red Door. I think the second one was the one I missed.
It sounds like you would have missed number 2 and number 4 then.
Oh, I didn't know there was a 4.
Yes, it's called The Last Key.
Oh.
Okay, so Insidious Chapter 2 like picks up like right after this first one, and it's like, hey, Josh is possessed by the Bride in Black, and so they have to uncover that whole thing, and you're like, oh, okay, and like Ghost Elise is being helpful because he snaps her neck and stuff. Anyway, it's basically you just find out that like the Bride in Black is actually like some old man who dresses in drag because his mom told him to be a girl when he was little. It's very problematic, and it just doesn't like nothing in it makes sense. There's like three versions of him running around. Like there's like a young version and an old version and some other one. Like like somehow there's three versions of this ghost at the same time, but they defeat one of them and suddenly the other ones disappear, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Like it like they break all of their own internal logic rules, which is really frustrating. And again, really problematic in also some other ways. The third one is, I think, a perfectly adequate horror movie. It just doesn't really feel like it has anything to do with Insidious. It's just like girl has injured her foot and is like bedridden, and now there's a creepy like ghost with a respirator that is after her.
Oh
and
yeah.
and like I thought it was like actually a pretty good like scary movie, but really the only thing that makes it Insidious is that they're like, oh, and this happened in the past, and Elise showed up and helped.
Yeah, that was kind of convenient.
Which yeah, and like they had like a couple like other little nods to some of the other things, but like I'm pretty sure this was one of those, someone had a script and then the studio went, oh, but if we put the title Insidious on it. Though actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like it was written by Lee Wanell as well, so maybe not, but it certainly didn't feel like it fit within the universe anywhere as neatly as, you know. It didn't feel like a sequel, I'll put it that way. The last key is about, like, when Elise is young, for some reason. Or it was like when she was little, her dad was abusive or something, and there was like a weird door in their basement, and so now she comes back when she's an adult, and this is like just prior to Insidious 1, and she like faces this demon with like a key face. It doesn't really make any sense. It was very dumb. Like the whole time I just was like, what? Like, what is this? This makes no sense. Why is any of this happening? And then there was the door one, which I didn't even watch because it just the trailer canonically didn't make any sense. But it sounds like you watched that one.
Yeah, I didn't dislike it. I wasn't looking for a whole lot, but I kind of like that they revisited it with Dalton as an adult. And so yeah, you got some interesting perspective on that. They were able to touch on some different things because they were able to use, instead of using all the same characters, they had like his roommate and that kind of, I don't know, livened it up some. It was watchable.
I might get to that one eventually. It depends on if I'm in the mood for okay sequels. Anyway, yeah, just as a whole, don't really recommend the sequels. I thought, again, the third one was a perfectly competent horror movie. Just didn't really do anything new. But, I don't know if it really needed to.
I'll just watch Malignant again.
You do that. Oh man, what a movie. So we like to kind of close things out by asking the question: how are you staying spooky lately? What is some horror media that you've consumed recently that maybe you want to highlight, or just, or maybe the opposite of highlight and just go, this is bad, stay away from it. Just anything that's that you want to kind of treat as a sounding board now.
Yeah, I've been inordinately lucky, I feel like this year. I read a lot for blurbs. And I have just gotten hands on some of the most incredible books this year. But one I just finished reading and gave a blurb for is a body horror anthology called Welcome to Your Body. It's edited by Ryan Marie Kettering, and it's fantastic. Like it it's kind of divvied up into body parts. So like you have like, the limbs, the head, all this like kind of split up this way, and it's just so interesting. Sasha Brown's story having to do with teeth was like, I was like, I'm mad at you because you're just dropping these hurtful truth bombs in what is supposed to be this like tooth fairy story. But a lot of the stories are like that. It's just very readable. It's very entertaining. There's a huge amount of variety between the stories, and the authors really just they went to the mat with it. So that one is really good. And then from a movie standpoint, I watched The Night House, and holy shit, that movie's amazing. Like I can't believe that I missed it up to this point, and I can't wait to go back and watch it like six more times.
That's been on my list forever, and I haven't watched it yet, so I definitely need to.
Yes, and watch it when you don't have anything else going on. Like it's definitely one you're going to want to concentrate on.
Sweet.
Ooh. What's it streaming on?
I had to rent it on Amazon.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna buy it physical media wise though.
Ooh, that good, huh? All right.
NJ, how are you seeing spooky?
So I picked up a few books when I went to Horror Hound Cincinnati, and one of them is this anthology, new stories from the Twilight Zone. So it's just a bunch of short stories, and they have Richard Matheson, Robert McCammon. I'm not terribly far through it, but I love the Twilight Zone. I love the blend of sci-fi and horror, so it's right up my alley. I would recommend so far.
And Matheson and McCammon are both two all-timers, so, sounds like it's worth it.
I mean, you can't go wrong. Yeah.
No, that's excellent.
I am staying spooky by reading a recent run of Moon Knight, so the Marvel comic. So it was a run that lasted like 3 volumes in 2021. It's by Jed McKay, but it's really fun. It's really creepy. It's basically Moon Knight versus a bunch of like vampires mostly, and it had some like really great twists and turns. It was creepier than a lot of other Marvel comics tend to be. So that was a lot of fun. Not like full-blown horror, but at least very horror adjacent. And I had a fun time with that one. Besides that, I'm just reading so much all the time. Like I'm listening to a book called The Exorcist's House right now. That one's pretty fun. It's by, what is the name of the author? I'm blanking on his name. Nick Roberts. So far, it just has lots of kind of fun, creepy haunted house vibes. And I just read This Skin Was Once Mine by Eric LaRocca. So also some very good stuff. I usually enjoy Eric's writing quite a bit. So that one's definitely worth picking up. Though I think if you're going to read anything by him, I highly recommend Things Have Gotten Worse Since Last We Spoke.
Yep. That one's great.
But, yeah, that one messed me up.
Yeah.
But all good stuff.
Eric is also just like one of the sweetest people. He's so kind.
Yeah, I've met him briefly at StokerCon, and just the nicest dude.
We like to support nice people.
Indeed. Okay. Well, before we let you go, Laurel, where can people find you? Where can people get the book? Plug all of the things.
I am on Twitter to a detrimental degree, so like find me on there, but then like also tell me to get off. And I'm on Instagram and like Blue Sky and stuff. If you just search Laurel Hightower, it's one iteration or other of those. And then you can get the book. It comes out tomorrow, so I don't know when this is going to air, but that's April 23rd is when it'll be available. And you can buy direct from Ghoulish on their website is the best way to support small presses. But it's also available through your usual methods of obtaining reading material.
Excellent. Yeah, everyone go do that. I'm going to go do that because it sounds freaking rad, and I'm mad that I didn't read it ahead of time because life is chaos.
Oh, yeah. No, life. That's the thing now. Makes sense.
But now I really want to, so, guaranteed stuff. Okay. Well, I think that pretty much wraps everything up. So I guess the last thing that we need to tell our audience is to stay spooky.
Stay spooky.